Charles, I had my head down when you walked in.
I stuck in.
We were made aware just today, I guess, of the passing of Mr. George Benjamin, and I wanted to ask Carl to say a few words on that score. Just as now that we've called the meeting to order.
Okay. George Benjamin was first appointed to the commission in 2007 and served until 2015. In 2019, he was appointed vice chair, and in 2013, he served as chair until his leaving the board in 2015. In addition to Regional Planning Commission, George served for many years as the Dawson Township trustee. George was a legacy farmer tending to his family farm in Bentown. It was established by his great-great-grandparents in 1854. He additionally raised and showed purebred Suffolk sheep for many years. George is survived by his former spouse, Lori Vile, and his children, Neil and Claire. As noted in his obituary, George was a model citizen and an uncommonly good man. He exhibited those traits during his service to the commission, and personally, it was my honor to have served during his tenure. I ask that the commission send a note of condolence to his family and now rise, if able, for a moment of silence in his honor. Thank you.
All right. Attendance has been taken, and we do have a quorum. Welcome to the people joining us online. Is there any public comment for this meeting?
We didn't receive any requests either.
No public comment. The next item of business will be to approve the consent agenda. Before we do that, are there any items on the consent agenda that any member of the commission would like pulled out for further discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Seconder? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes. And as there were no items removed, we can go right on to the presentation. You want to introduce Jerry then?
Yes. If I may, we're so glad that Jerry is willing to come and present to us. And staff thought, since transportation planning is really a core business for our regional planning commission, we got our funding from the federal government, from IDA, Inland Department of Transportation, and so it would be appropriate, to invite our supporters, partners, colleagues, from the county highway department. As a start, we would like to also invite public works director, engineers from the city of Bloomington and town of Normal. But as a start of this series, Jerry is, has accepted our invitation, so we appreciate that. We work with Jerry a lot, and with his department, they cover a lot of work, and which will be shown in this presentation. He serves on a lot of different committees with us, so we work really closely. And without further ado, Jerry, who's the county engineer?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, so I'm glad I get to go first in this series of things. Yes, I'm Jerry Stokes, and I've been at the County Highway Department for 19 years. And so I'm going to give kind of a high-level overview of kind of some of the things we do at the Highway Department. And if we want to dive into any more, just let me know, and we'll go from there. So here's a map of our highway department. So we're the biggest county in the state, and we stretch 42 miles wide by 32 miles tall, and so it's a lot of land area there. And so the main function that the highway department, I guess, serves as far as locations and stuff is we're kind of a connector from the municipalities to the state routes, or for continuation of other county highways to state routes through McLean County. So that's so every I think every municipality except for Hayworth has a county highway that goes through it. So we used to have there used to be a highway that went through Hayworth, but the traffic once 51 was built, the traffic counts were way lower, and so they were the road was transferred to the township. So we have 361 highway miles. And so 253 of those miles are hot mix pavement. So those are the higher type pavements. And then we have 108 miles that we considered oil and chip. And so those are lower type pavement, kind of more like what you'd see on an actual township road. And so, but we also have 842 lane miles. And the reason that is because Tawana Barnes is our road. And so from Route 150 down by Downs all the way up to Rab Road is a 5-lane highway that we maintain. So there's 40 miles of of additional pavement that we maintain on that stretch of road, but that's also our busiest road. And then we're broken out, the counties is broken out into 30 townships. And so there's like 1,500 miles of township mileage all the way broken up to the county. And so each of the township is about a 6x6 mile quadrant that there's a township road commissioner that maintains each one of those jurisdictions. And then so we have 380 bridges in the county. 87 of them are belong to the highway department, and then there's 293 township bridges. And so we try to rehab probably like one bridge per year, whether it's a county bridge or township bridge. And our longest bridge in the county is 384 feet, and it's up kind of on just north of the PJ Keller Highway on the Gridley Road. And then the longest township bridge is 284 feet, and that is just north of the spillway. It's in Gridley Township. So then we inspect all the bridges in the county for the county and for the townships, and we do that depending on the age of the bridge. We do it every 2 to 4 years. So anything over 40 years old, we have to inspect every 2 years. Anything less than 40 years is on a 4-year cycle. And so we have a rating system of 1 through 8, and it's a nationwide rating system that we use, or that you use to inspect the bridges. And so that way everybody is trained to inspect the bridges the same way. So that way when somebody else is going out to look at the bridge, they're going to see how you rated it. And it's a same process throughout every state in the U.S. So, and so that also helps us kind of determine what maintenance items we need to focus on, as well as kind of some rehabilitations. And so when the bridges start getting around the 5 mark is kind of when we start needing to do some rehabilitation, or when we need to start maybe looking at a whole total replacement. So most of our structures are in really good shape. We don't have any, we might have a few 5s out there, but there's also different criteria depending on the type of bridge it is. So if it's a big bridge, we look at the deck, the superstructure, and the substructure. And so when those get to around a 5 or 6, and if it's multiple components, then we start looking at the replacement cost. If it's just one of those components, then we might look at just kind of rehabbing the deck or doing some type of preservation on the bridge itself. And so we work with townships and try to determine maintenance needs and that type of stuff as we go along there. Some of our personnel, so we have 33 full-time employees, and so we have 9 on the engineering staff, and we do a lot of our own in-house plans for resurfacing or smaller projects. We do a lot of culvert sizing for the townships, and do a lot of work for the townships themselves. And then we hire consultants to do a lot of our bridge work and bridge replacement work, because they have to be stamped by a structural engineer. We don't have a structural engineer on staff. And then we have administrative assistants, 18 maintenance employees, highway maintenance coordinators, who's kind of like our sign foreman and maintenance foreman. And then we also have 2 fleet managers that take care of our equipment. And so then, so our equipment, we have quite a bit of equipment. We have 18 tandems, an excavator, a backhoes, a paint truck, and a sign truck. We do a lot of different maintenance items for shouldering, striping the roads. We have a sign shop. We actually have around, we went out and inventoried all our signs one time, so we have around 13,000 signs that we maintain. We inspect them on a yearly basis. We go out in March and make sure that they have the right reflectivity. And so we go out at nighttime and inspect them all, and then we determine which ones need to be replaced throughout the year. We have a materials lab where we can check gradations on rock. We have a nuclear density gauge where we check the density on the hot mix projects. We also have where we can break concrete cylinders. So if we're out inspecting the bridge, we make 1 foot tall 6-inch cylinders. And then after they cure for 14, 21 days, we break them to make sure the strength of concrete is there. And we do that in-house as well. And we also have a welding shop that we fabricate all our hitches for our plows and spreaders. And so we do a lot of work in there. This saves the county a lot of money, so we don't have to farm that out to a different party. And so we do that, and so we do all kinds of stuff in that welding shop as far as just building different things. So our maintenance crew runs the welding shop, but they're also involved in snow fighter operations, of course, this time of year. And so the 18 drivers they have 20 to 25 miles of their snowplow route that they're responsible for. And so a lot of them they'll take their truck home during the snow event, and that way they can access their territory right away and then start plowing the snow. And so a typical winter, it's not surprising that we would use like 5,000 tons of salt. That's what we can store on site. That's pretty much about what we use on any given year. This year's been, pretty mild, so we've, saved in that regard. So it's been nice. This is kind of a picture of one of the maintenance items we do. So this is a shoulder machine that we purchased that sits on the front of our grader, and then we haul the material from the quarry with our trucks, and we back into this machine, and then it lays it all out. So on any given year, we'll probably put like 5,000 tons of gravel down, depending on where we need to go at. And this is our semi. We do have semi as well that's backing into this dumping. So that's kind of our maintenance side. I'm going to talk kind of briefly about a little bit of how we do our budget and everything. And so this is our kind of our expenses, and you can see like 70% of our budget is spent on capital projects. So that's all our construction projects throughout the year, and it's kind of broken out into our services, and then supplies, and then salaries. So we operate out of the highway department operates basically out of 4 funds, and they all kind of have different things. The highway fund is basically our day-to-day operations funds that we do, and so like our payroll and the day-to-day bills get paid out of that. And so that's a property tax-based fund that we do, and then we also we keep pipe on hand and signs on hand for the townships, and so they buy some of that stuff from us, and so we sell it to them. And then we also provide engineering to the townships on their motor fuel tax, and so they reimburse us for the engineering, and that all goes into the highway fund as well. So our bridge fund is used for county bridges. We and a lot of times 10% of township bridges or 50% of township bridges are culverts. They kind of we have a township. The state has a fund called the Township Bridge Fund, and so that's where the state pays 80% of the project, the county pays 10%, and the township pays another 10%. And so that's where we go around when we go through our inspections and try to figure out what bridge needs to be done, and we kind of just spread that out through the townships based on the need. So this is another property tax fund, and then we do a lot of work for the townships as far as joint culverts. And so we do the work and then the townships would reimburse us for like 50% of the cost, basically. And so here's a project that we did here in 2020, last year in 2022. And this is on Stringtown Road where it was a total replacement of the bridge. And this was around like $1.75 million project that we did for this total reconstruction. And so this is kind of another side view of it. So it's I don't remember the length of the bridge, but it was a pretty good size. I think it was maybe close to 200 feet by the time it was all said and done. And then here's kind of another example of a smaller, this is what we consider a box culvert. I think this is like a 10x6 concrete box culvert that we did out by Sabina in 2018. So then we also have a matching fund. And so this fund can only be used to match funds we spend on federal projects or motor fuel tax projects. And it can really only be used on construction, engineering, and right-of-way is really the only thing. It can't be used on any payroll or day-to-day operations. And then the motor fuel tax, which is the big one, we use that for all kinds of stuff. A lot of our maintenance materials, our salt, signs, everything comes out of that, or a lot of our oil chip work. And then as well as our capital, some of the resurfacing projects that we're doing. So we get a lot from the allotments. And so the motor fuel tax, that can be a whole other presentation. It's really involved. But so there's an existing MFT formula where it's 19 cents based on the old formula at basically what you pay at the pump. And then in 2019, they added a transportation renewal fund, which is an additional 19 cents. And so that all kind of goes through the state and they divvy it out into different sectors. And then so it gets paid at the pump, but there's also part of the motor fuel tax comes from the DMV, from Secretary of State. But that revenue really just goes to the state. It doesn't come down to the local agencies. And so the amount that's paid at the pump comes to us, or actually it comes and then it's 45% goes to the state, and then 54% comes to the locals. Well, then they break that down even further, and so then that 54%, then 49% of that money goes to the municipalities, and that's based on population. And then it's 17% goes to the counties over 1 million that have a population over 1 million, and then it goes to 18% goes to the counties less than 1 million, but then it's apportioned by the amount of vehicle registrations that you have in your county. So, and then the remaining 16% goes to the townships, and then that's allocated based on mileage. So like I said, it's a pretty complicated deal, but we usually receive about $300,000 a month in motor fuel tax, and that includes the original allotments plus the transportation renewal. And then there's also a supplemental allotment that's a county consolidated, which averages about 2 allotments. And then the last 3 years we received money from the Rebuild Illinois Capital Program, from the Rebuild Illinois funds. And so we have received about $6 million total. And it's a 6-year capital program. And they basically what they did is they fronted all the money. So we ended up getting $2 million in 20, 21, and 22. And so we've already spent $4 million of that on the Meadows Road project that goes from kind of north of Lexington to Route 24. It was a 5.5 mile total reconstruction. And it was an $8 million project total. And we used $4 million of the Rebuild Illinois funds on that project. So this kind of breaks down our 2023 construction and maintenance costs. So it's about $17 million. And it's a little higher probably in 2023 than what it normally is. We probably on a given year is about 10 to 12 million. We have some additional post-construction wind farm work for the last couple of years. And so that's included in this budget that we receive the revenue from directly from the wind farm. Some other like funding sources. So what we get involved with the regional planning is with the federal surface transportation program funds. So it's kind of broken out. So the rural funds are allocated to the county that we use out in the rural areas. And we have about $1.3 million per year for that. And we use that for a lot of resurfacing projects that we do. So we probably do like one resurfacing project a year. And so like next year, we're going to resurface the Danvers-Eaton Road, which is really a busy road for us. And then we also sometimes we work with the town and city on allocations of the urban funds. And so we did a project last year on White Oak Road that you solely use the urban funds. And usually these funds are an 80-20% match, or 80% federal, and then we have to match 20%. And then there's also a federal bridge program. We get about $200,000 a year, which isn't a lot, but it's based on how many deficient, the square footage of deficient bridges you have. But the good thing is we don't have that many deficient bridges. So we don't get a lot of money for that, or it takes a lot of years to save up the money to do a project. And then I mentioned the Township Bridge Program, and we get about $320,000 a year, and that's where I mentioned the 80-10-10 split. We apply for TARP funds, which is Truck Access Route Program funds, and we use that quite a bit to connect if it's connecting to a state route or a truck generator. And then we also apply for Highway Safety Improvement Programs, which we use for like roadway departures, where we're putting rumble strips on the side of the road, or and things like that. And then we also apply for Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program, and that's for bike trail. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we move along. So we do a lot of pavement preservations throughout the year. So we do some crack sealing, which is kind of general maintenance that our guys do. We have a crack sealer, and we go out and rot the cracks out and fill those. The next three, the slag seal, the fog seal, and the microsurfacing, are kind of more of a thin layer that goes over hot mixed roads. And so it preserves the life of those roads from, sometimes we'll get 7 to 8 more years out of that road, depending on how much traffic's on the road and the age of the road when we're actually doing the pavement preservation. The bottom two, the cold in place recycling and the full depth reclamation. So that's a process where we inject emulsion. We till up the pavement and inject emulsion into it, and then we lay it back out. Sometimes through a paver, sometimes it's just regraded. And we usually about do probably one project a year with this as well. And then we'll overlay it with hot mix, but it allows us to kind of use the resource of the existing pavement, and so it's kind of a nice green initiative to do. So here's kind of an example of a cold in place recycling project that we did, and this was done up on Ron Smith Moore Highway, which is done up around Lake Bloomington. And so you kind of see the train here. So this is the paver, and this is the milling machine, and this is the tanker of the emulsion. So this is milling up the pavement, or chewing up the pavement, and we're injecting the emulsion at the same time. And then this belt is shooting it into the paver, and then it lays it back out. And so you kind of can see this is what the product after it goes through that train, and then we roll it in place, and then we come back and we put 2 lifts of hot mix on the road. And so this is a really good project. We did some widening of the road to accommodate some of the walkers and bikers up there. And so it's a really nice road up around the lake if you ever get a chance to travel it. So some of the safety programs I mentioned earlier, this is we do roadway departures. So we're kind of taking initiative to putting hot mix out on the shoulders, and then putting rumble strips out to prevent people from running off the road. And so we also put center line reflectors in on a lot of our roads, so a lot of drivers can see the center line as they're going down there. And then last year we got a grant with HS Highway Safety Improvement Program funds, where we went around and put flashing stop ahead signs on all our roads that basically come up to state routes. and then as well as some of our like county to county intersections and some of our higher accident locations that we're aware about to try to prevent some of those running stop sign accidents. And then we also put rumble strips in at a lot of our intersections coming up to those same routes that seem to help. So this is kind of example. This is Linden Street, South Hudson. That is an example of the rumble strips and guardrail and that type of thing with the edge of the pavement. So it's still kind of, we look at that and try to accommodate some of the bicyclists so they're allowed to ride here and get off the pavement as much as possible. I mentioned the Route 66 bike trail, so that's kind of an initiative that we've also done. So we've constructed about 5 sections over the last 10 to 12 years, and so it's about almost 15 miles that we've done here, south of Bloomington and north of Normal, and we've used Illinois Transportation Enhancement Funds for that and ERA money. The ERA money was in 2009, and that was kind of an infrastructure program at that time. So this is kind of a map of, and so all the green is what we've constructed. And so we're trying to go through the rest of the county. We have an application in for this section down in McLean for additional ITEP funds. And then our county administration's working on grants to kind of finish this out through the rest of the county to continue that through the county. So we're kind of, I guess, the leader in the state when it comes to the construction of the bike trail.
Jerry, what's the how the counties on either side of us responded to the fact that we're moving to get our trail done? Because it seems to be nice if we got our trail done and it led right into the next county.
Sure. So I know, so Logan County, I think they have a bicycle plan, and I think they're kind of continuing on. They might have some stuff there in Lincoln, and they're kind of expanding out from there.
Okay.
And then Livingston County, they're set up a little bit different, but the state's actually looking to resurface some of Route 66 in the next few years. And I think part of that is looking to maybe construct that bike trail basically from Chenoa up to Pontiac. So there's some movement there. I don't know how quick it'll go, but hopefully we can get out to them and then they can connect to us. So, but so here's a picture from 2010. This was the first section that we built. This was going basically from Fox Creek in Bloomington down to down to Shirley, I guess, and it was probably, I think, 4 miles long. And this was a section that was built in 2020, and this is down by Funk's Grove. And so this was a bridge that we had to have for the bike trail, and it's a 150-foot long bridge. And so the contractor came in and they built these abutments, and so the bridge came in 2 pieces. They put it together kind of on Route 66. And then there's 2 cranes, a crane here, and there's a crane right here that basically set it in place. So that was a kind of a neat thing for us to do. And so, so we're continuing that on. So I think it gets used quite a bit, or at least certain sections of it do. And so I think it's a good perk for the county, that's for sure. Kind of moving on to wind farms. So we've had a lot of wind farm construction over the last 3 years, and so we just finished up Sapphire Sky wind farm down and around the Bellflower area, and so that consisted of 64 turbines. And so we're working on so here in 2023 we're going to put all the roads back and get those back to where kind of normal where they were at before the construction started. So there's 555 turbines in McLean County, so we're kind of leading that as well. So, which is good. And I don't know how depending on the wind farm, I'd say anywhere from 5 miles to 30 miles of county highways have been improved, with those wind farms on these given years. So it does help with that, but it's a kind of a issue getting there, I guess.
Excuse me, Jerry. On the wind farms, can you explain to us a little bit about wind farm is supposed to be a private development. How come the county is involved and have to do all this work? How's that work out? Because it's a little bit different, I guess.
So they, so the wind farm developer has to go to our zoning board and has to apply for a special use permit. And so as part of usually one of the conditions of the special use permit is to have a road use agreement. So they have to, because they're bringing in heavy loads and, like one of the wind turbine towers could use, like, let's say 80 loads of concrete just to build the base and everything. So it's constant heavy traffic on those roads. So, we try to protect them going into while they're constructing them and then after they're construction so they can get put back the way they were originally. So, sometimes we'll come in there, usually on the county roads, sometimes we'll upgrade those prior to the wind farm starting construction so that we can upgrade, because it's going to be like, let's say, one of their main haul routes. And then, so we'll do that ahead of time. And then we also work with the townships on their road use agreements. A lot of times they'll have to till those roads up and then add additional gravel to get the strength there to handle those heavy loads. And then they run all the concrete loads, aggregate loads on those, and then they construct the wind farm with all the cranes and bringing in the actual components themselves. And then usually a year later that we're helping the townships and putting the township and the county roads back.
Do they pay for all this work?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
Reimbursing?
Yes, yeah, so it's a reimbursed process that we do. They also pay, like, maybe some of the town, depending on the wind farm developer, we've also had where they pay a per tower price for the wind farm depending on how many components they have or how many turbines they have. But they also take care of the pre-construction improvements of the road, any maintenance works going on the road during construction, and then the post-construction work. And so we usually put the post-construction work together for the county and the townships, and then they reimburse us after that is completed. Or actually before it's completed, that way we can pay the contractor accordingly as the work's done.
Thank you.
Jerry, have they been good partners in that for the most part? Does it all depend on who's doing it?
Right. Out of the 5 wind farms, 4 out of 5 have been pretty good. We had one. I mean, they did the work that was necessary, but it is how the
process.
Yeah, how the management of the wind farm company is and who's on and the staff. We've gotten better to ask for a lot of this stuff up front and so they know their expectations coming in.
Thank you.
And then, so I mentioned some of the townships, like I said, with 30 townships. So our main thing we have to do is we have to monitor their motor fuel tax expenses. So they're just not allowed to spend motor fuel tax on anything they want. There's certain requirements and certain processes that we have to do to spend that money. So a lot of their money gets spent on the oil and chip, on their maintenance of their roads. But we do occasionally add, there's like, some of them might have to do a bridge or, maintain a bridge. We use some of that. I mentioned that we do a lot of joint culverts. So, with our excavator, and we have a really good crew, a pipe crew that can go out there and replace these culverts as necessary for the townships that don't have the resources to do that. And so we'll probably anywhere from 10 to 15 culverts a year for the townships to replace. And then, so we set up their cover steel program, as I mentioned, so that's part of their motor fuel tax. We assist on the road use agreements when they have, whether it's a wind farm, solar farms, or kind of any other thing that's coming along there. So we assist them on that. And like I mentioned, bridge inspections. But we used to do a lot more stuff when there was a lot of development. We used to be involved in the subdivision developments in the townships. That's kind of tapered off over the years. So we haven't had to do a lot of that. But if it wasn't to come about, we'd be out there basically inspecting the road and make sure it's built right. And then we kind of recommend to the township that they can accept it, and then they accept those roads into their system. And then so then we also kind of help out on any other drainage issues. So there's my contact information if you need it. I did want to kind of show one other thing real quick.
You should be able to click on the tab at
Okay.
the bottom yep. There you
So this is on it's on the McLean County GIS website. So we also go out and rate our roads every year. And so we have we do it with the Pazer system. And so, and this can be found online and we update it. So we go out and rate the hot mix roads and the oil and chip roads. And so the hot mix roads it's on a scale from 1 to 10, and the oil and chip roads is on from 1 to 5. And so you can get on this map and kind of look and click, and it kind of gives the rating of that particular road. And so we kind of use that to help us determine, we look also to help us determine, what roads need to be maintained, what roads we might need to resurface. But we also look at how old the road is, the traffic count on the road, what kind of funding we're able to use, whether it's federal funding or motor fuel tax funding. And so that's kind of a tool if you want to go out there and see what we have. So here's kind of the scale. There's the concrete and the hot mix. So good thing is we don't have any down here in the red. So that's good. I mentioned the Danvers Eaton Road that we're looking to do next year. So that's a rating of a 4. So but the traffic count on that road is probably 2,500 to 3,000 cars a day. So it's a busy road and everything. So,
Jerry, so you're better able to use your resources to meet the demands of where they really need to go. This is the same system that normal Bloomington uses as well, right?
Yes. Yep.
Do you receive public comment regarding what's posted out here? Recommendations, if you will.
Not really too much. We also have a 5-year plan that's on our county website that kind of lays out, more what projects we're looking at in the next 5 years. We're actually looking to maybe do some kind of more interactive map with our 5-year plan to kind of show exactly what we're doing, how much it's going to cost, that type of thing. So
I was curious if, to the extent you do receive public comment, so maybe you don't, good point. How much of it is it private versus commercial commenting?
It's probably more private than anything, but a lot of it's more kind of in passing, or it's more, it's not necessarily, send an email that this road needs to be addressed. It might, they might inquire about when this road's going to be completed. And I usually tell them what, it's on, 5-year plan, or it's, outside of their 5-year scope, that kind of thing. So that's all. Any other questions or any other thing you want any more detail on? It's kind of a high level overview.
Jerry, what would you say are like the biggest needs or the shortfalls where you're short resources? You guys do a great job out. I'm a neighbor. I'm just around the corner from where your office is, but you guys do a great job with Torrent Barns and everything else, because that's not easy. There's a lot of traffic on that road. It is from top to bottom. That road it's hard to do anything on it for you guys even.
Right.
It's so busy. So I just was curious. Throughout the county, is there short resources in certain ways, or is there chronic problems that you kind of see that it'd be nice someday to have, kind of a wish list type of thing?
Yeah, we always have a wish list. So a lot of our, I mentioned so we have a lot of oil and chip roads. So it'd be nice to get some of those roads up to 80,000 pounds to accommodate, the local farm traffic and the bigger trucks and everything. But that's hard to do with the amount of funding. We've been doing a little bit more of that the last couple of years. Like I mentioned that Meadows Road project, and then we're also doing one south of Leroy this year. It's a 2-mile project. We got a couple other ones in the works, but those take like 3 years from start to finish. Right. But with the price, so it was great to have the additional motor fuel tax increase there in 2019. But the problem is now all the material prices, construction prices have skyrocketed 15 to 30%. So now we're almost back to where we were. So there's going to be a problem I see just trying to maintain what we have and trying to to move forward and take care of some of these issues that we have as far as reconstructing some of the roads and that type of thing. So, and we're seeing more development out in the rural areas with some of the solar farms, and but there's elevators are expanding, and so it's just a lot more things going on in the rural areas.
Well, thank you for the job you guys do. I've traveled all over the state for a host of reasons, and we do a pretty good job around here compared to what you drive into.
Appreciate that.
But question, when it comes to getting funding, what sense of priority do you see your funding sources putting on roads versus everything else they're funding? Are roads a low priority compared to all the other projects in the state? Or are they?
I would say that they're a high priority for everybody that's involved, and just getting the commodities and getting everything that they need to. Like Bart mentioned, there was no the trucks aren't getting smaller and loads are getting heavier, and it's just being able to accommodate that, and as well as the additional traffic, with the growth that that we've seen in McLean County over the last few years, just trying to keep up with that is, the funding has increased, but and so I think we've done a good job of trying to maximize as much funding as possible. Like I mentioned, the TARP fund, so that's a good resource to basically increase some of the to get it to 80,000 pounds and on those roads that connect to state routes.
Okay, and then when it comes to obtaining funding, do you make proposals for a standard that you want to maintain these roads at to get funding, or is it more you're told what the funding is available and do the best you can with what we've given you?
Basically, we know what funding's available, and it doesn't really fluctuate a whole lot. Sometimes there's grant resources we can apply for, but pretty much on a year-to-year basis, we know what we're going to receive in motor fuel tax, what federal dollars are going to be, and that doesn't fluctuate much. So we're able to kind of budget and put a plan together as we go. Now, sometimes that can throw everything out of whack if with construction prices going way sky high. We might. There's a couple projects that we were planning on doing here in 2023 that we've already moved to 2024 just because of staffing issues or environmental issues or anything like that. So it's just it's a constant game, I guess.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Seems like motor fuel tax is a significant source of income.
Yes.
Maybe it's too premature, but the onset of electric vehicles, when we do look ahead, what does that maybe do in terms of funding? What influence might you have in terms of alternative funding sources?
Sure. So with the electric vehicles coming, that's kind of a big initiative that our Illinois County Engineers Association is kind of already out in front of and trying to work with IDOT, planning and moving forward and kind of making sure that the locals, get a piece of the pie, I guess you could say. So we're already kind of looking at that. I think as I understand it now, I think the electric vehicles have a higher registration fee now. Then maybe it's like $100 more than what the typical car is. But the problem is that all goes to the state, and none of the locals don't see any of that. So that's the kind of stuff we need to make sure that we're not just the counties, but the municipalities and the townships as well. So everybody's going to see part of that, and because they're talking about. They're going to talk about electric semis that weigh more than 80,000 pounds. And so trying to address all that is going to be interesting in the next 5 years.
Jerry, I don't know if it would help other people that are from the rural areas with the road posting mechanism and how that all works. Might be just, I don't want to get you down a rabbit hole, but
sure.
It's a way for you to help manage the roads so that you know, you're trying to keep them maintained and not having to spend exorbitant amount of money, you know, doing major construction on those. I don't know how many people understand that process or how that works, but.
Sure, yeah, great question. I thought about putting that in there.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, maybe no one's interested, but obviously it's interesting to us because, you know, we work with that, but I don't know if everybody realizes you guys do that to help manage the load on the roads.
Sure. So by state statute, the counties and the township are allowed to post their roads for 90 days. And so the county has an ordinance set up to where we can post our roads from January 15th to April 15th. And so what that does is basically, some of them call it the frost loss. So when the road freezes, and then it starts getting warm, like next week, then all the moisture starts coming out of the pavement, and the pavement starts getting soft, especially on our the oil and chip roads that I had mentioned, and a lot of the township roads. So once that moisture comes out, we limit the weight on those roads. So it's 8 tons on the township roads, and then on certain hot mix roads we have are 10 tons. And so it kind of varies on when we post the roads. We don't always post on January 15th. So like this year we haven't posted the roads yet because it's, you know, it just started really freezing here the last couple of weeks and or last week or so. And so there's not a lot of frost in the ground. But you know, next week if it's going to be close to 50, we might have to look to putting the weight limits on. And so then if the weight limits are on, then the loads have to be under 8 tons for them to go on unless they have a permit. Now we allow certain weights to go for the garbage trucks, for feed, for their animals, milk and that type of stuff. We allow lower weights on certain, kind of so much per axle is how we do it. So yeah, it's a process, but it does. And you go to other counties that don't do this, and we actually hire the sheriff's office to provide extra patrol for us to help mitigate the heavy weights on our roads. And so a lot of the local residents really like it because, you know, they see that it does a good job for the roads, and, you know, but we might get some cut through traffic and that. And so that's the kind of people that we're looking to limit who's taking the weights on our township roads.
Do you get a lot of violators?
We do.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I want to say they probably write like close to 25 to 50 overweight. Well, take that back, 25 to 50 tickets, but it's not an actual overweight. It's disobeying a traffic control device, which goes against their CDL. If they're a known violator, or they can tell that, or the deputy can tell that they're way overweight, then they take them to car lock and get them weighed, and then it's an actual overweight ticket. So there's probably not a whole lot of those, maybe 4 or 5 a year, but it's quite a few violators. But with that being said, we've also upgraded a lot of our roads to 80,000 pounds over the years. So it's kind of, on the county side, it's kind of been limited, but there's still some other routes that need to be addressed.
And then we, you know, like out in the country, we live on a township road. We can also work with our township road commissioner.
Sure.
And ask for a permit. He can kind of say, yeah, it's dry. You're probably okay to go to this weight. And we can get a permit from him, signed that says we can haul to that weight. And that way, if we do get pulled over by the officer, then we can say this is the permit that we have. And as long as we abide by that permit, it's not an issue. But it's a very workable situation to help keep the roads, because, you know, we need them to get our product to market, but at the same time, we use those roads every day to live on them, and we don't want them trashed. We don't want them destroyed. It's a fine balance that we kind of have to walk, and they do a really good job of, you know, working with us on those issues. But the reason I brought that up is we all take for granted that we just pull out of our driveway and we drive on our roads, but there are times when there are certain things we need to do on the farm that we can't always get on the road for, and we have to kind of work with either Jerry or with our township road commissioners to make sure we can do what we need to do when we need to do it, and if it's not going to destroy the roads that we're using.
Yep. How many miles of gravel roads do we have in McLean County now? Or do we have any?
There is a few township roads.
Really,
Yeah, it's probably under 10 miles though. It's not a lot. but they're all township roads, and but there's a couple townships that have tried to make those oil and chip roads, so that there's residents, but a lot of them, the gravel roads don't have any residents on them, so there's really no use putting any resources or funding in those type of roads.
Any other questions?
I have lots, but I'm not gonna say.
Well, come out anytime,
I'll
see
come
you
out.
around, or we can go drive around. Sorry to take up so much time, I didn't.
Jerry, you're welcome to stay, but thank you very much. That's a lot of information.
It is, yeah.
Is your presentation available?
Yeah,
If anybody wants to look it up or
I
download
can
it?
send it to Ray.
That'd be great, thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah, if you got any other questions, you shoot me an email.
Thanks a lot for sharing all that with us.
Sure.
Okay, our next item is item B, Regional Housing Initiatives Update. So is Tanya going to do that?
Yep.
Thank you, Tanya.
I stand here.
Well, for the camera can catch,
I can zoom in on you.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so members of the Housing Assistance Coalition have provided over 6 million in COVID-related assistance to county residents since May 2020. And from that, almost 1 million in assistance was provided in 2023. MCRPC is participating in cold weather subcommittee monthly meetings. In relation to housing data, MCRPC staff are currently updating the housing data dashboard, and staff are also working on the update of a white paper called Preservation of Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program and Other Income Qualified Housing in McLean County. The latest version of this white paper was published in 2021. Federal updates: there are 2 federal grant opportunities to address lead-based paint and additional housing-related hazards. Grants are to be awarded to state, local governments, and to public housing agencies. More information can be found at the Illinois Department of Housing website and also at grants.gov. And finally, Mr. Ray Lai, MCRPC's Executive Director, has been recently appointed to serve on the Illinois State Housing Task Force. That's it.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thanks.
Ray and Jennifer, on item C.
yeah, I'll start first, and then if anything that Jennifer wants to add, she may. Great news. Today we've learned that we got the federal grant award that we've been waiting for, the SS4A. If you recall, we've been kind of waiting for a few months, and it's the SS4A, the Safe Streets and Roads for All, a federal program. Road safety is a planning grant that we got. It's one of 6 planning grantees in the state of Illinois that got it, and we are among those. And so we just got the word, and there's a press release, and then you can go on the website. It was granted by the U.S. Department of Transportation, and so we will be working with probably Federal Highways and the U.S. DOT on agreement in the coming months. And but if you recall, this is kind of a follow-up, if you will, to the Go Safe plan that was adopted by you, and it's like a federal version, if you will. They have added some elements and criteria, such as equity and other aspects that to their version of the safety plan, and so this will be like an expanded version. So we will be hiring consultants to do the work, and based on what we have accomplished and what you have adopted the Go Safe plan, but we go to a more broader level. And the goal for us is, once we get the action plan, this SS4A action plan done, that would put us in a good position to apply for some implementation plans, to help safety, such as some of the things that Jerry mentioned earlier, highway safety and other things. And so stay tuned. The US DOT they promised it's going to be announced by January. So today is February 1st. It wasn't even on their website last night when I checked. So we excited. We have a lot of local partners, from IDOT to a lot of local partners, including county highways to the transit to the water reclamation district in city and town. So we are partners, that have made financial commitments as a local match, and so we're grateful for that. So we'll be working with them and see how it goes. So this adds to the few other grants that we have been awarded, as you're aware. And so there are 2 other transportation safety grants that we've been keeping you apprised. One is on the bike and pedestrian safety, and we've had, and Greg Hutz is been asked to be the project manager on this on behalf of staff. So he has held meeting with the law enforcement sector, if you will, with the PDs from the city, the town, ISU, and also the county sheriff's department. And so the purpose is really for public education, safety, but more akin to the pedestrians and cyclists. And so we'll be working with the school districts and others and really try to target that population. The other transportation safety grant we got was on a broader level and more broader geographic area, basically the entire county. And that one, we are working, finalizing some of the agreements with IDOT, and that we will also be working with a number of partners. And for that one, IDOT has been generous on that one. Initially, we were supposed to be meeting with the local partners. We were going to provide some local matches because the funding source is from the federal government. And so IDOT, we're grateful that they're willing to provide the match. So we'll be able to save some local dollars that can be shipped, to the other grants such as the SS4A. That one, we are hopeful that it will be finalized very soon on the agreement with IDOT. So we have a number of grants on our plate related to safety, and I would say that would be good to come under the Vision Zero project update as part of the implementation. So more work will be generated, will be coming out. So just stay tuned, and we'll keep you apprised. Anything Jen want to add?
Well, this is our opportunity to take our Go Safe plan to the next level and move forward with it as we envisioned when we began, as a sort of guiding principle and a set of possibilities for the local community in addressing all the safety issues we've identified.
Okay, broadband.
Yes, broadband breakthrough. We're so excited. We were really busy. We're going to be very busy in the next 2 years. McLean County is one of 5 counties in the state who got this, I wouldn't say the grant, but it's more like a technical assistance from the state, from the Office of Broadband. And the goal for this is really for public engagement, community education, and to work out through a 16-week process, planning process, education, and to come up with a plan how to provide better broadband for the rural communities, the rural area, particularly the agriculture sector. And so this is really intensive. You're going to be for the next 14 weeks. We will actually, tomorrow is our second meeting, and we meaning the county administration really, we providing a lot of support to them, but we also working with a number of partners locally, regionally, and including school districts and others, in the rural community, the farm bureaus, and the whole initiative, although works under the Office of Broadband, the state, but it's funded entirely, if not primarily, by the United Soybean Board. And so they also work with the Farm Bureaus and the Illinois Soybean Association, and so we have other partners, ISU. So really have a lot of opportunities to enhance the broadband accessibility, the availability, the affordability. And at the end of the day, with this plan, we against all the people involved in this planning is to also just invite the providers and see if they can cost this, and is it something the county as the lead to really to make it work for the rural community. And so we again, under the leadership of the county administration, really working hard on this, and we are so grateful because it was competitive. It was 5 out of 12, I think, that they're eligible, but we are one of the 5 got selected, and so we'll keep you apprised. And while its focus is on the agricultural sector, but we know there will be implication on tele-education, tele-health, and other ways affect our way of living. So it's really excited. We know in the town, urban area, that's not a problem. But the rural area, especially the farming community, especially the rural communities, is hard because it's costly. It's not, you're running fiber optics all the way to the entire county. So are there ways that could become a reality? So the county administration is really excited. Done this technical assistance. So we will keep you apprised.
Good.
Ray, if I could insert something real
Yes,
quick on
yes,
that.
please.
One of the first major steps of that 14-week process is a community survey. And so we're looking to get as much feedback back from the rural areas of the county as possible. And with that will be basically people can go take a survey and say what their access to broadband is. Then go and take a speed test online, an internet speed test to show, because it might say, a service provider might say you have X speed, and you don't really have that speed. So including that survey, the speed test, and all that good stuff. So that's an early step of this 14-week process. We might be reaching out to you guys to help spread the word, get word out. It's important to get as much feedback as possible in terms of people, but also spread geographically across the county. So we're getting each kind of corner of the county fulfilled in this survey feedback. So
are these providers? Are the providers already set?
No.
Okay. So will this information be used to prepare the contracts that those providers will get?
Yes. So the end result of this 14-week process will be like a plan. How we, the county, can position ourselves. And so during that 14-week process, there will be conversations with some the providers, who may or may not be interested. And there won't be a selection even during that 14 process. Basically, it's a plan. And then the county can decide, okay, what do we want to do with the plan? So some counties, you decide, okay, we'll look further on other things. Some would want to waste more money because maybe the cost estimate would come back much higher than what the county can afford. And so there's a lot of different directions. There will be different options even after the plan is done. But at least needs that plan. So the contract, say if the county decides after all the information, the education by some experts, we know, hey, there's money, or there's ways to find money or help get financial assistance from whoever, and then there will be a RFP process, I'm sure, and see whoever whichever providers will be interested in competing. Some of, and you might know better than I do, some of the areas are also getting high-speed internet, but maybe it's the cost, maybe it's how good it is.
Yeah, 'cause I know
So,
in other work that I've done, the contracts of the providers say that before they can increase their service to their existing customer base, they have to meet thresholds in a rural community. So, they're looking to make money in the higher density populations and serve those populations. They know they can make money there, and if they increase their speed in those places, their contract requires them to reach thresholds in the rural areas before they can go and solicit or provide that additional service.
Right.
So that would be contractually, that would be, I know this study is looking at the requirements, but
Yes.
I also have to, we have to be the stewards.
Yes.
Yeah.
And part of it will
Yeah.
be learning how to properly, draw up contracts, but also understand how to communicate with those internet service providers as well when the time comes. I know that there's, over the next however many years, there will be, coming from the feds to the state, funding available for broadband projects. And so we just want to be sure that we're prepared in terms of.
Yeah, I know the stage, even before this, the federal government has been funding on the broadband stuff, and then they give those to the different states, and the state devise the programs, and not just like recently in the last year or so, there are state programs. That's why they have established this Office of Broadband, and it's like millions of dollars. And there's been programs and other grant programs, but those were not really for the local governments until like now, because they were looking at the state level, working with like the service providers to setting the system up. And so now it's going into the localities to see, hey, what are the needs are, right? For McLean County. Like you said, the providers only would go and provide service if they can make money. And so there got to be some way, maybe from the state or the feds, that would help, say, the county to finance, that network or whatever. And so by having or being one of the 5 counties got selected, I think we will be in a good position once the plan is done. If you want to be in the county, once you move forward, and the state might provide certain amount of financial assistance, I would think, because they get money, from the feds and also their own to help, because they want to promote broadband for the entire state. So yes, answering, I don't know if I answered your question. Yeah, that's still a time to come. It's not going to happen like right away. There's a lot of process, a lot of steps, a lot of conditions that have to be met. FCC, I'm sure that will be involved, the Federal Communication Commission and the state, they are providing certain financial resource. But Greg and I work on this particular one on behalf of MCRPC, working with the county administration and also many of the local partners on this, from the education to, whether it's the, kind of higher ed to the school districts and health partners and others, regional education and
Rural mayors.
rural mayor associations and a whole host. So it will be an exciting time. We need to get us into the 21st century, if not preparing us for the 21st and a half century.
Thanks.
Okay, that which may arise. One thing I wanted to bring up, and Tanya mentioned it actually, some of us just learned today or late yesterday that Ray's been appointed to 2 organizations that are a tribute to him and to our planning commission, I think. Both at state level. One is the housing task force that Tanya mentioned, and the other is the high-speed rail communication, the High-Speed Railway Commission. So I just wanted to mention that so the rest of the commissioners are aware and congratulate Ray. I think it's an honor to Ray and we could be very proud that our executive director is going to represent our community at the state level. These two important witnesses.
I didn't know how to pick up my name, so.
Congratulations, Ray.
Thank you. No, I think it's good to have someone from this area to kind of about the interest, for the needs of the people in our region and how we connect to Springfield and other parts of the state. We are in central Illinois, but it's north, south, east, west. So while I should have perspective on the state geographically on this statewide, and also knowing the area and working with you all and getting the support from you all to just see how our needs are met, if not at least to bring to the attention of the state, and then through different programs, and I just could also be like a liaison somewhat. So yeah, just yet to be seen. We had the Housing Task Force, the first meeting last week, and multiple state agencies are involved in that, and some other housing folks in the High Speed Railway Commission. Yeah, still to hear from IDOT, because it's really IDOT is the one providing the staff support.
Oh, did you have anything else?
Yes.
Does anyone have anything else?
If I may, love for me, but would like, if you recall, we lost a couple of staff members a couple months ago. We're fortunate to have 2 new members just join us this week. This past Monday was their first days, and Mark Adams is our new community planner, and then Francesca Lewis is our assistant planner. I'll just let you all to introduce, you stand up and introduce yourself, please.
Anything in particular that you'd like me to share, just general?
Just share and loud enough that folks on the screen can hear.
Go ahead and zoom in on me. Yes, my name is Mark Adams. I'm a community planner. I just joined. My first day was on Monday. And I served 2 years as a housing counselor at MCCA. And I worked with individuals to get them mortgage ready. So I have a strong grasp of the real estate market and what the changes are going on. And then before that, I was working up in Chicago as a data analyst for Mercy Housing League Fund. And they provide permanent supportive housing up there. So did some permanent supportive housing program analysis and grant funding for them. And I'm a proud alumni of ISU and also UIC. So I got my master's in planning.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you so
I
much.
have 2 years of background. I worked there 10 years.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, my name is Francesca. I'm the new assistant planner. So I'm from Oswego, Illinois. I graduated from ISU just this past May. I studied geography there. And then after school, I was working for the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission in Peoria. And I'm happy to be here. Excited to get started.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Anything else? I will call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Olson, second.
One of us. Yeah, somebody write it down. All in favor?
Aye.